Oh,
How are you, Chuck? What's going on?
well, our theme, I'm thinking themes today, John.
Oh, are
Theme
you?
is
Oh,
yes. Well, um, and I'm doing fine. I'm always thinking about what can make work better, right? Because that's the theme. That's where we're heading with HR stories, not just purely legal or employment law things, but overall, what can make work better. And you came up with an interesting angle for today's episode on what did 2025 teach us about making work better in 2026. And you were saying that there's a new poll out of sorts of the
wow.
state of global workforce or something like that.
Yeah, so
What
Gallup, right? You know the Gallup organization,
yeah.
right? They released earlier this year the State of the Global Workplace Report. And I have to tell you, the title of the report focuses on the human side of the AI revolution, but that wasn't what grabbed my attention.
Okay. Well, that is interesting because apparently we are having to mention AI in every workplace conversation. It is permeating everywhere that I'm going.
Yeah, no, everywhere we're going. In fact, I'm working on a course
Hmm.
called Leading AI Adoption in Your Workplace.
Okay.
So it's going to be a great course. It's going to come out in September. We'll let everyone know as we get closer where it is and where you can get it. It's for one of our big clients. So we'll let everyone know that. And so AI is here. But when I read the report, the larger story wasn't really about technology. It was
Hmm.
about people. It was about managers. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I
And it
love
was
that.
how employees are experiencing work, and frankly, how work is failing a lot of them.
Sure. Well, here we go. Another uplifting episode of HR
Oh,
stories.
yeah, I know. I feel like we've been kind of being the downers for the last time, but the report gives us an opportunity because it looks back at what happened in 2025, and instead of treating it as just another collection of disciplinary and workplace statistics, I think we should ask a more useful question.
Yeah,
What did 2025 in the beginning of 2026 teach us that's going to make work better into the future?
sure. I like that because I'm not sure anyone needs just another report telling them employees are stressed, they're disengaged, blah, blah, blah. Most leaders already know that. They know something's wrong in ways, but they may not know what to do about it.
All
But
right.
they
So
know it, right?
yeah, absolutely, 100%, right? So let's begin with the headline number.
Hmm.
Global employee engagement fell to 20% in 2025. That is
Hmm.
the second consecutive year it declined and the lowest level Gallup's reported since 2020.
Oh,
And
wow.
Gallup estimates the low engagement cost the global economy about $10 trillion in lost productivity.
I don't know. What's wrong with people, man? $10 trillion in lost productivity. What is wrong? Why are people so lowly engaged? But
Yeah, so
give me
9%.
more info.
Yeah. So 9% of the world's gross domestic product, $10 trillion. Now, when we hear that number, it's large, almost becomes meaningless because it's
Yeah.
so large. It's like talking about the distance to another galaxy. I can hear the number, but I can't really picture it.
Yeah. Yeah, but uh, but that is a it's let me guess, it's probably not a big percentage of the gross domestic product, like you had told me earlier, like 9%, right? And no individual manager is sitting there thinking, well, I was responsible for approximately 4.7 billion of that, correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're not right. So, but underneath that enormous numbers are millions of smaller workplace moments. An employee who does not understand the priority of the business, someone who stops offering ideas because no one's listening, a
Yeah.
manager who postpones a difficult conversation because they don't feel prepared to have it, a team that keeps working around a broken process because fixing it feels like impossible. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I got an example of that. I was working with this one client, and they had this process and they're like, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Instead of fixing it, they try to work around it. I'm like, why aren't you fixing it?
Yeah, right. I
Oh,
see
yeah,
that
right.
all the time.
Yeah. So these moments accumulate, right? Gallup defines engagement as the psychological attachment employees have to their work, their team, and
Yeah.
their employer. So
Okay.
this is not simply asking, "Are you happy at work?"
Okay. Gotcha. So that distinction matters, right? Because sometimes organizations respond to disengagement by trying to make work more fun.
Exactly. Pizza is not a
A
management
pizza
strategy.
party. Pizza party. It's a pizza party. Um, I don't know. It can be a lunch strategy.
A perfectly acceptable lunch strategy, Chuck. But engagement is not primarily about perks. It's about whether people understand what matters, believe their contribution matters, and have the conditions they need to do worthwhile work. Love that term, worthwhile work.
Hmm.
That is why I think organizations make a mistake when they treat engagement as something they can pursue directly.
Yeah. So let's. Why don't you explain? What do you mean by that?
So, engagement is largely a result.
Yeah, because this
It's
is your thing. Like this is your thing as a leadership guru. You've written classes about this. You've written articles about this. So I'm just letting our audience know that you're that guy. You're that guy.
I'm that guy.
Yeah,
And you mean that in the nicest manner, I'm sure.
of course, of course.
Right. Yeah. So engagement is largely a result. It's a response to how people experience the workplace over time. You cannot order people to care more. You can't put increase employment engagement on a manager's goal sheet and expect that number to rise. You have to improve the work or the workplace.
Yeah. So I gotcha. So instead of asking how do we improve our engagement score, see if I got it. How do we improve
Yeah.
our engagement score? The better question is what is happening in this workplace that makes it harder for people to care?
That's
I
it.
like that. I
That's
got to
the
write
question,
that down.
right? What's
Yeah.
happening in the workplace that makes it harder for people to care? Or what's getting in the way of people doing their best work? Because employees usually do not arrive on their first day intending to become disengaged,
Yeah.
right? Something happens or repeatedly fails to happen that changes their relationship with work.
Okay. So um, that number, everything pretty much surprises me, right? So let's talk a little bit about the managers, okay? And the manager's role, maybe the manager decline, I guess you might call it. Um, what's happening to managers? What happened?
Yeah, and so it surprised me too that number in 2022, 31% of managers were engaged.
Mm.
By 2025, that number had fallen to 22%. That is a 9% points in 3 years. And the
Hmm.
largest decline happened during last year when managers' engagement dropped from 27% to 22%. Gallup says lower management engagement accounts for most of the recent decline in overall employee engagement.
Sure, sure. So the employees see their managers, right? That makes sense. It's difficult for a disengaged manager to build an engaged team, and it's difficult for a team to stay engaged if their manager is like not even into it.
Yeah, it is, right? But we should be careful not to turn that into the managers are the problem.
Yeah, right. Because they're also employees, right? They're also employees experiencing the workplace.
Yeah, and I've said this 100 times, right? Managers are squeezed by both directions. Senior leaders are asking them to execute more quickly, manage change, improve performance, retain employees, communicate new initiatives, and somehow maintain morale. Employees
Hmm.
are looking to them for clarity, support, development, flexibility, and honest answers about what's happening. And the managers offer standing in the middle without enough time, authority, training, or support.
Yeah, that the time is a big deal. Having the capacity and the time. And when I bring that up, even for myself, or about others, you get the well, you need to learn how to manage your time better. And I'm thinking, dude, we are managing our time, but there is only so much you can do without that support, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and to pick up some other pieces. But sometimes, the manager is often standing in the middle without any of that, and then sometimes without the answer, right?
Yeah, often. I think often without the answer. Yet we promote someone because they're, oh gosh, this is my pet peeve. We
Yeah.
promote someone because they're excellent at their job and then assume they will naturally know how to lead people during work. No, it
Yes.
doesn't work that way. Can we say it, everyone? It doesn't work that way.
I know.
Managing is a different skill set. We give them a new title, right? We give a new manager a new title, add 6 meetings to the calendar and say, congratulations, Chuck. Please begin coaching your staff.
Yeah, and leading your staff and managing your staff, and I used to say a super employee does not make a supervisor.
Oh, I
But
like that.
anyways,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Thank you. But
Yeah, I like that. A super employee does not make a supervisor.
yeah.
Put that one in there. That's a quote. We're going to keep that one.
All
Yeah, I
right.
love it.
Boom.
Yeah,
Drop the mic. You've heard it today.
yeah,
HR
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stories
Right.
podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, please begin coaching. Please begin handling conflict,
Give them
right?
feedback
And motivate.
and carry out a strategy that they not fully understand. That isn't leadership development. That is leadership abandonment.
Yeah, but Gallup also makes the point, okay,
Okay.
that the decline is not inevitable.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
right. And this may be one of the most hopeful findings in the report. And Gallup's best practice organizations, 79% of managers were engaged, and nearly 4 times the global average. That means that's not simply an unavoidable price of becoming a manager. Organizations can create workplace where managers thrive.
Yeah. So, what are those workplaces doing differently?
So the report doesn't give us one universal formula. But to me, when I think about this and when I'm focused on this, we have to look at the quality of decisions, right? And so the quality of decisions that the employee is making, the quality of decisions the managers are making, the quality of decisions the executive team, and they're making those decisions within conditions, right? There are certain conditions that influence those decisions. And if we, as the leadership team, HR leadership team, we can improve those conditions, we can get better. All right. And so the ones they pointed out in the article are this: managers need a manageable span of responsibility. Do not have them managing 42 people. They need to understand their role. There needs to be clarity of direction around the role. They need training, Chuck. I
Yeah,
know
I
that,
know. I
right?
know.
They need useful systems and they need the authority that matches their accountability, right? So we're asking them to make these decisions. We have to allow them to own those decisions. And they
Yeah.
need someone managing them well.
Yeah, that part gets overlooked. But I am going to just go back a little bit. What I have seen in my workplaces over the years is an increase in technology, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, where technology introduced was supposed to help managers do their job better, more efficiently. Hey, spend more time with the people, less time on administrative
Oh, yeah,
tasks,
yeah,
and that has absolutely not happened.
yeah.
Okay. That has not happened. However, I do see a glimmer of hope with AI, and that's
Mm.
probably for another
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, but overall, technology really has not, helped. And so, your point about they need useful systems,
yeah.
absolutely. And your point about they need someone that's managing them well does get overlooked.
Yeah, yeah, all the time, right? And so we talk about what managers should do for employees, but who is creating the conditions in which the manager operates? A
Mm-hmm.
manager cannot consistently provide clarity when a senior leadership is constantly changing direction. They cannot protect their team from unnecessary work if they don't have permission to question priorities. And they cannot coach well if every hour is consumed by administrative tasks and meetings, another meeting, another meeting.
Yeah. So we keep telling managers take care of their people without asking whether the organization is taking care of its managers. It's kind of like, hey, treat our clients with
Oh,
like
yeah.
5-star quality, but we're not treating you as employees with 5-star experience, right?
Yeah,
So
I love your example that you talked about, that one hotel that had all these amenities for the guests and that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And you walked into the break room and it was broken chairs and the tables
yeah.
didn't work, and you were like, that's not how we get 5-star service from our employees.
No, the bottom line is you've got to treat your employees the way you want your employees to treat your guests, customers, and clients.
Right. Shadow, right? And taking care of, right, does not mean lowering the standard. It means giving managers what they need to meet that standard. Support and accountability belong together.
Yeah. So much of this is emotional, right?
Yeah.
Work really is an emotional experience, and so there's another part of the report I found interesting, that overall employee well-being actually improved in 2025. So I guess employees feeling better about themselves, maybe, right? And the percentage of employees that Gallup classified as thriving rose. I mean, it rose slightly, okay, 33 to 34%, so not dramatic, but at least it's moving in the right direction and not moving in the other direction.
Yeah. And the daily experience tells a more complicated story, of course. Stress, anger, sadness remain pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah,
Gallup suggests that could reflect lasting psychological effects from the pandemic, or that we've entered a more difficult normal in the workplace.
perhaps, but I don't know about any more psychological effects from the pandemic. I mean, it's been 5, 6 years. I don't know. I don't know. But anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
what you're saying, Chuck, is that you think we've entered this more difficult normal,
probably.
right? And so again, I think a lot of that has to do with um, the division within the country, social media, and just the rants and the things, and we can't go anywhere and not have nice things anymore, right? And
Yeah,
so I
well,
think that's it.
you bring up the social media thing, and this kind of might divert it out, but the algorithms end up feeding us
Yeah.
what we want and what we want more of,
Well,
and then that becomes our whole world
yeah,
type of thing.
I would say what they assume we want more of, right?
Uh-huh.
Because it's funny, right? And so this is a simple example, but my Apple tunes, my
Yeah.
music, um, I'll go listen to a song, and I have a very diverse liking of songs. I'll go listen to a song, and all of a sudden, that type of song shows up. I was traveling with my mom, a 93-year-old mom, and we're going down, and I'm like, hey, we have Apple Play. What do you want to listen to? We can listen to anything. She goes, oh, do you have Frank Sinatra? And I'm like, yeah, we play some Frank Sinatra. And she goes, oh, how about blah, 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 right? And so Cab Calloway, and like she wanted all this music from the 40s and 50s and early 60s. And so I started playing that on the ride with her. And what happens to my algorithm?
Yeah, now it thinks you're the
Right. Now it's, I mean, again, right. And not always, because I'm playing different things, but so that sometimes the algorithms can jump on one thing and just kind of keep bringing it to us. So again, I think that becomes important. Anyway.
So anyways, let's circling back. People are human, right?
Yeah.
People do not stop being human when they walk through that workplace door. Correct.
Yeah, they bring their whole life with them, right? I've said this numerous times. I think on the podcast, I say it when I'm talking about emotional intelligence classes and leadership courses. You have a certain energy. You only get so much energy in a day. It's not like, oh, I got work energy and I got life energy. They got the same, right? And so they bring, when they come into work, they bring in uncertainty, family responsibilities, financial concern, previous experience, fears, ambitions, whatever happened on the drive that morning into work. And then the workplace adds its own level of emotions: pride, belonging, frustration, anxiety, confidence, embarrassment, and hope. Every workplace is an emotional workplace, an emotional cauldron, I would say, whether it's leaders acknowledge it or not.
Yeah. So, okay. So, but this is where some managers get nervous. They hear emotional workplace and they think they're now expected to become therapists.
And that's not what we want from them, right? The manager's role is not to diagnose people or solve every problem in their lives. But managers need to understand that emotions influence what people notice, interpret, respond to what happens around them. And you
Yeah,
cannot manage performance well if you pretend that emotions have nothing to do with the individual employee's behavior.
sure. And the report does show that leaders themselves are carrying a lot of it.
Yeah, and this is the fascinating part, right? Gallup found that people at a higher level generally report stronger engagement and better overall life evaluations, but they also report worse days
Yeah.
compared with individual contributors. Leaders were more likely to report experiencing significant stress, anger, sadness, loneliness than the previous day.
Ooh.
So leaders may look at their lives and say, overall, I'm doing well. Why? Their daily experience is emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, I can personally identify with that. That makes a lot of sense, and your analogy or your comment about we only have so much energy, life energy, work energy, personal energy to give, right? So, anyways, that all makes sense. And leadership can give you influence and purpose, but it can also isolate you in several ways.
Yeah, and you have to make decisions that affect other people's livelihoods. You may know information that you can't share. You may have fewer people with whom you can speak honestly. The
Hmm.
report calls attention to the emotional burden of leading, and I think should change how organizations think about leadership support. Not simply another class, not another
Hmm.
motivational speech, Chuck.
Yeah.
Leaders need space to think. Leader relationships, sorry, they can trust, and people who can challenge their perspective.
Yeah, sure. Because a depleted manager, depleted of energy, right, creates conditions for a depleted team.
Yeah, it's funny. We do this thing in the business world. We'll do what are they called? We'll get people together. I can't remember. There's an official name for them, and we get them together, and we'll get like 6 people together, 7 people together, and they meet on a regular basis, and they build this bond where over time they can start sharing their emotional constraints, so their emotional challenges, and it really becomes beneficial for them because it is the place that they can be their true self, and they
Hmm.
have other leaders that are listening to them, right? And so all that comes in. And so we do this at times within workplaces. We pull managers together and to have those same conversations. It's a little harder because of confidentiality and that kind of stuff, but it is a really interesting thing to kind of do. And so energy moves to the workplace. So does anxiety. So does confidence. So does
Yeah.
clarity. They're contagions. And so we have to be
Yeah.
trying to pay attention to that.
And I see that. I see that, having these conversations makes me resonate and think about my own um, experiences. So especially my experiences at my job now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I see a lot of this. So going back to something we talked about one of our previous episodes, I guess, is how employees see the job market.
Right.
And the report said globally, 52% said in 2025 it was a good time to find a job, which was a slight improvement. But when they break down and break out Canada and the United States, they've fallen significantly since 2019.
Yeah, the region fell from 70% in 2019 to 40% in
Wow.
2025. It's
Wow.
probably even less now.
Yeah.
That matters because when people believe they have choice, they experience work differently. Gallup found that employees who feel they have a lot of choice in the work they can do are nearly 50% more likely to believe it's a good time to find a job.
Wow. So Gallup found that employees who feel they have a lot of choice in the work that they can do are more likely to believe it's a good time to find a job.
Yeah, I think what
Interesting.
I was thinking is that a lot of choice in the work that they can do, meaning not the work at work, but that I can go to another company and I can go to this company and
Yeah.
I can, right. So I have that opportunities. They're more likely to believe it's a good time to find a job.
Gotcha. So there's a lot of choice throughout this report showing up.
Yeah, absolutely, it does, right? And so Gallup also found that well-being and engagement are stronger when employees enjoy their work, believe their work improves other people's lives, and feel they have a choice in what they do. Those three ideas together, enjoyment, contribution, and choice, matter.
Okay, let me just. So they found that well-being. I'm sorry, just going to reiterate this to myself. Well-being engagement are stronger when employees enjoy their work. Yes, I get that. I'm thinking myself. Yes,
Okay.
my well-being and engagement is when I enjoy the work, when I believe my work improves other people's lives. Gotcha. And when I feel like I have a choice in what I do, I'm not trapped. Right. So employment, contribution, choice. I love that. So choice does not mean everyone gets to do whatever they feel like doing, though.
Right. Work still has requirements. Customers still have needs. Deadlines still exist, but people need some agency over their daily work.
Agency.
They need to
Yes.
feel that they can influence how work is done, use their judgment, make meaningful decisions within clear boundaries. One of the most demoralizing workplace experiences is being held responsible for an outcome while having no influence on over how that outcome is achieved.
Yeah. So we're basically being told you are empowered while every decision still has to go up 3 levels.
That's not empowerment. That's an inspirational poster.
Yes, yes, yeah. Probably next to the pizza party.
Yeah, right next to the pizza, right? But the issue underneath this is there is hope, right? I can see a future here. I'm learning. Do I have choices? Does the work lead anywhere? Even when employees are not actively searching for another job, they need to believe they are moving, right? That progress part is really important rather than becoming trapped.
And that is not always a promotion.
Yeah, not everyone wants to manage people. Future might mean developing a different expertise, taking on a new assignment, learning a skill, gaining flexibility, having greater influence over their work. Organizations sometimes define careers growth too narrowly. When only visible path is upward, most employees eventually reach a ceiling.
Okay, so John, here's the great question.
Okay.
Bringing it all together,
All
bringing it
right.
all together. What does make work better in 2026? If an organization reads this report and says, oh my gosh, what do we need to do to make work better this year or going forward, where should it start?
Yeah, I would start with the managers, not blaming them, but asking whether the managers have the conditions that will need to lead effectively. Do they understand organization direction strategy? Are priorities clear enough that they can make decisions? Is their span of responsibility reasonable? I think back to one of the jobs I had 5 teams underneath me. And that, again, right, that may be a lot, but then I also had 5 strong managers under for each one of those areas. So that was reasonable on most days. Have they been trained to set expectations, observe performance, coach employees, hold people accountable? And are they own leaders doing those things for them?
So before launching another employee engagement initiative, okay,
Yeah,
look at the manager experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then second, give more people meaningful choice with clear boundaries. Clarity and autonomy are not opposites. In fact, people often need greater clarity before they can safely be given freedom. Tell people where they're going, what matters, what are the boundaries, and what a good outcome looks like. Then allow them to use their knowledge and judgment in the workplace.
Yeah. No, I like, you mentioned something earlier. Allow them the agency.
Yeah.
Allow them agency. And I really like that. I got to remember that one. So, okay. What's the third?
Reconnect work to contribution. Mm-hmm. And so not through a frame mission statement that no one can remember. I got a funny story, Chuck. I was doing a leadership training this week. And one of the things I always do is well, not always, but occasionally I'll throw up the company's, I'll ask everyone in the room, what is the company's vision statement or mission statement? What is it? And no one, 54 people in the room, not a single person knew what it was. That's not, again, right? That's why we don't focus on those. We don't do it. You have to see help employees see who benefits when the work is done well, right? What becomes possible of their effort, whose life becomes easier, safer, healthier, or better. Meaning it's not created by clever language. It comes from helping people see the relationship between what they do and why it matters, not
Yeah.
only in the workplace, but outside the workplace.
Yeah, sure. And I would add, organizations need to take the emotional experience of work seriously, not by promising constant happiness. And I don't know any companies that are actually promising that, I guess, but
Yeah.
because that's not
Disney.
realistic.
Disney does.
Yeah,
When
I
you
don't
go
know
to
if they.
Disney, they promise everyone's going to be happy.
No,
Oh,
I
wait,
think people
that's the
people
client.
assume that that's a promise, but
Yeah, I know. I
you
know.
know,
I'm
but by
kidding. Picking
paying,
on Disney.
I know, by paying attention, I guess, to unnecessary frustrations, uncertainty, isolation, and exhaustion.
Yeah, we can't remove every difficult emotion from work, nor should we try. Some work is hard. Accountability can be uncomfortable. Change creates uncertainty. The goal is not to create a workplace where no one ever feels bad. The goal is to create a workplace where difficult emotions are not continually produced by poor leadership, unclear expectations, and broken systems.
Yeah, gotcha. So just as I'm about to say, all right, I think we're done here. Thanks, folks, for listening and watching the HR Stories podcast where we're making work better. I really think we need to wrap up one final thing, and that's the subtitle of the report. What about AI?
What about it? We should. AI matters because it's changing work, right? Creating uncertainty, placing another major implementation responsibility on managers. You got to get it. You got to get people using it, make sure they're doing it right. But I think workplace lesson is larger than AI. A new technology cannot rescue a poorly managed organization. If people lack clarity now, giving them a faster tool may simply help them move in the wrong direction more efficiently. If employees do not trust leadership, the introduction of AI may increase anxiety around productivity. And if managers are already overwhelmed, asking them to lead a major technological change
Oh,
without
yeah.
additional
Yeah.
preparation will make the problem worse.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the AI lesson is still a people and work lesson.
Exactly. Technology matters, but the conditions around the technology determine how people will use it for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has all been great conversation. What would you say the biggest message you took from this report?
John Thalheimer. That workplaces does not get better because leaders announce that employee engagement is important. And it gets better through the decisions leaders are making every day about priorities, systems, resources, expectations, and people. And perhaps the most important lesson over the last 18 months is that managers cannot carry all of that alone. If we want our employees to have a better experience in the future, we have to create a better experience for people leading them.
Yeah. And mine is that people need to experience some sense of meaning, choice, and hope, being allowed to have agency, over their world, a little bit. Okay. Have a little agency. They need to know their work matters, that they have some influence over it, and that there is a future beyond simply completing the next task.
Yeah, and it makes work better. Not making work easier, not removing standards, not making everyone happy every moment, not pizza every day, but making it
Oh,
possible for people to do work that matters and do it well.
nah, okay. Occasionally, John, providing pizza.
Listen, Chuck, I am never opposed to pizza. We just watched a food channel top 10 pizzas. And my wife and I were like, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Yeah. Pizza is very personal, I realize now. I oppose asking pizza to do the manager's job.
Okay, agreed. All right, that seems like an appropriate place to end.
Agreed. This has been the HR Stories, making the workplace better. Thanks for listening. We will see you next week on the HR Stories podcast.